I don't know much about the weather of Montana or the culture of Montana. Do you like it there? I've never been. I've been to maybe half the states, but I've never been to MT. All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And here we are, live with me, Colby Martin, because it is Wednesday at 2 p.m. and I'm doing Perspective Shift, which you can go to colbymartin.substack.com to get it in your inbox. What is Perspective Shift, you might be asking? It is the cumbersomely named weekly article that I write through the platform called Substack. And the idea is this. I like the sort of center of the Venn diagram of spirituality, religion, and psychology. And so in the middle there is where I'm very intrigued by all of life and sort of look at it through the lens of those three things. And oftentimes what I'm learning is that much of life is about a constant shift in our perspective. That might be maybe the whole point is to constantly be transforming and growing and changing and asking questions and being open to new possibilities and new perspective shifts. And so I write this newsletter once a week, and it goes into your inbox on Wednesday mornings usually. And then on Wednesdays at 2 p.m., as you can see right here, 2 p.m. Pacific time, I hop on here to Facebook and to YouTube, which I see some of you. Ms. X says it's snowy and cold and bleh in Montana. I'm sorry. It is currently 70 degrees, sunny with a little crisp here in San Diego. I just thought maybe you're curious how it's going for me. So what I do on my Wednesday at 2 p.m. Perspective Shift shows is I hop on here live and I do a little split screen side by side, and I put up here the article that I send out, the Perspective Shift article that I send out, and do a live reading. And I invite people to join me if they want. Why? Because, I don't know, not everybody wants to read or has time to read, but they might have time to throw on a live show, or they might just prefer this format to be able to see the face of the author and hear the voice of the author. Which, fun fact, my first book, which was Unclobber, the company that put out the audiobook for it did not let me read it. And instead they got like some, I don't know, retired Shakespearean actor. It's really funny. I haven't been able to listen to the whole thing because I just can't quite get past it. But many people have reported to really love the audiobook. So, hey, I imagine it's fine. I just wish I was able to read it. So anyway, today I'm going to talk about my 6 emotions that I have been processing over the past 7-8 days since the elections last week. On Monday, I kind of realized, man, there's just a lot of things happening inside here, and I don't really know what all of it is. Maybe I can find them and name them through the process of writing, which I found has been a helpful tool for me. As an Enneagram 3, I'm often very unaware of my feelings. They're there as I'm smack dab in the middle of the feelings triad, the heart triad, but I'm not able to often name them or access them. And so sometimes writing helps me do that. And this was kind of what this post was my attempt to just like get it out into some sort of organizable, articulatable? I don't think that's a word. Form. And so this is what I've come up with here. Oh, Irma Jean likes the author's face. Thanks, Irma Jean. For those keeping score at home, Irma Jean is also my mom. Hi, Mom. And she likes my face. It's great. It's because half of it came from you, probably. Probably? I'm not sure why I threw that in there. Okay, here we go. So this is my 6 emotions 1 week after the elections. Here's how I'm feeling. And it's a lot. But I'm going to get into it. So here we go. As we all know, last week, a record number of Americans voted in the elections. And obviously the votes are still being tabulated. We know that. But we now have enough legal votes counted to safely predict that Joe Biden will be the 46th president. Yes, I know nothing's official yet. Things are still being tabulated. Yes, I know there's other things happening. But we know that it's going in the direction of Joe Biden. And I've got feels. So today I've been getting curious about those feelings that have come up for me, and I want to share those with you. And then invite you, if you want to share with me how you're feeling at the end, which quite a few people on this article have already shared. And I think that's really great to provide a space for people to share. So here's the number one feeling that has come up for me post-election. Relief. Relief. Not just leaf, but leaf again. Relief. The first feeling that I can identify is relief. Relief that the seat with the most power in our country will no longer be filled by Donald Trump. I still feel in some ways like we're being punked a little bit, like we're going to wake up one day and this was all just a big episode of punked. And I cringe to think about how future generations will look at this strange time in their history books from 2016 to 2020 and be like, wait, who? Who was president back then? What did America do? It will forever feel like the two truths and a lie game that my children's children are just going to always get wrong. No, sorry, kids. Actually, Donald Trump was one of the truths. He was an American president. But the lie is that Will Smith III was never president. Kids loved Jaden's grandson, but we could never convince him to run. But anyway, yes, myself, along with 75 million other voters, including Julie Hatfield, what's up, Julie, are feeling massive sighs of relief that finally we don't have to succumb to the rambling nonsense, the outright lies, the cruel manipulation, and the myopic policies that I think kind of mirror all of the Don's business adventures, which is a perceived version of success up front, followed by predictable failure and bankruptcy in the end, which I think will be a sort of fascinating reckoning over these next few years, as I think the economy is going to maybe tank, not just because of the pandemic, but because of the Trump years. And then Biden will get blamed for it because that's what happens is the outgoing president, their policies have a trickle effect. So Trump got to claim a bunch of Obama's success, and then Trump's tanking it because he tanks everything. Everything ends up bankrupt. Okay, what am I doing? I'm wasting time talking about Trump. This is not why we're here, although kind of. Okay, so the second feeling I have is joy. Look, joy. Now, Joe Biden was my least favorite Democratic candidate. So during the Democratic primaries, I was, a fan of several other candidates, more so than Joe. So it's not that I'm like thrilled that Joe got the job, as if maybe, say, Elizabeth Warren or Andrew Yang, there'd be joy. Like, yes, that's not really where the joy comes from, but the joy comes from the reality that our president, or at least the idea that our president is once again going to be someone of compassion and thoughtfulness. It's amazing how much I've missed that. It's amazing how much it impacts us to have someone in that seat not be a person of compassion and thoughtfulness. Because in my estimation, and you may disagree, but in my estimation, the 8 years before that, President Obama was, I felt, a compassionate and thoughtful person. And it was, I kind of just took that for granted. And then we just haven't had that in president number 45. And Joe strikes me as a very compassionate and thoughtful person. Not to say, obviously, that I agree with all of his ideas for how to run things. Not the point. Just compassion and thoughtful. And then the other thing that brings me joy is that our country will be led by someone who I think has a heart for people beyond just the rich and the powerful. I really just believed that Trump was primarily concerned with rich people and powerful people. And those were the folks that were at the top of his list. And it was probably a very small list. And then he just feigned caring about other people because it got him votes and adulation. But I get, again, Joe's not perfect, but I get the sense that he has a heart for people beyond just those who are like him. And that brings me joy. And then I'm filled with joy because we have a Vice President, Kamala Harris, who is the first woman to fill that role. And also Kamala's not white. And both of those just fill me with so much joy. Just such delight, because representation really does matter. So we have relief and then joy. And then number 3, the third emotion. Then I noticed some sadness. Once the relief ran through and the joy kind of subsided a bit, I noticed some sadness. This election obviously was about the removal of the most inept person to ever be our president, is my opinion. Of course, it's my opinion. I'm the one writing this. You know how in cartoons I got a picture there? There was always someone on the side of the stage with that really long stick with a hook at the end of it, like a long shepherd's staff. And when the person on stage was horrible, then they would like hook the guy off stage. You know what I'm talking about? That's the image that came to mind this last week, with more than half of our country standing on the more than half. Let's not forget that. More than half our country standing on the edge and just scraping Trump off the stage of liberal democracy before it's entirely ruined. But then we sort of look up at the other side of the stage, and what do we see? We see that the other half of the country is really, really mad because they still wanted Trump in office. And that makes me really, really sad. That makes me really, really sad. How many people still wanted Trump as our president? Now, I can't recall the exact breakdown, but I think Trump gained votes in like every single demographic, which means there really wasn't that many folks who witnessed these past 4 years and said, oh, hell no, we ain't making that mistake again. And I don't get that. I don't. And it makes me really, really sad. The fourth emotion that I've noticed in this past week is despair. And this is even worse to me than the sadness, it's the sense of despair that I can feel kind of hanging out at the edges. And the despair comes because those on the other side of the stage, the ones furious at us for dethroning their king, not only do they still want him as their leader, but they truly don't understand why we don't as well. In other words, the reality they live in is such that, quote, Trump as a great president is not just an opinion, it's an obvious fact. They don't just think that we on the left are wrong, they think we're delusional. They think that we're ignoring what is plain and obvious, which is that Trump, who, okay, sure, they'll admit, says crass things from time to time, they think he was obviously great for our country and deserves 4 more years. So the despair for me comes in this continued realization that we don't just live in a divided country, we live in 2 different worlds with 2 different sets of facts, 2 versions and visions of what is true. And I'm not sure where we go from here if that is what has happened and is happening. That really bums me out when I think about that. We're not just a country divided. It's really just 2 different worlds with entirely different assumptions about what is true. And we look at the other side like, how can you not see what is so plain and obvious? And yet we each think that about each other. And that has become painfully clear to me in the last couple weeks, maybe more so than in the previous 4 years. It's not that the right just thinks the left is wrong. It's that they think they're delusional. And it's not just that the left thinks the right is wrong. It's that they think they're delusional. Yeah, so that gets me with some despair. Julie agrees with me. It's despair that they don't get it. It's just, it feels a bit hopeless. Yeah, I've been feeling that. Number 5, the 5th emotion that I've noticed is anger. That's my anger face. I'm so mad at what I perceive as a willful ignorance and intellectual laziness by those who continue to claim that Biden's win is just inexplicable. There's no way to explain it at best, and then fraudulent at worst. Every day this past week, I have quickly and easily, it's not hard, quickly and easily chased down the answers to any and every story that has been presented as reasons why the elections were rigged. And it's absurd to me. It takes little to no effort to understand these things. You don't have to live in just constant amazement. Like, how did Biden catch up in battleground states when Trump had such a big lead? Though, well, that just seems or how did Biden flip these states that have always voted red for decades? Or how come so many mail-in votes? Oh, isn't that coincidental? Were disproportionately Biden votes? Listen, there's nothing fishy about any of this. Like, there are legitimate, reasonable, like what Occam's razor, the most simple explanation is probably the true one. Yeah, there are some simple and true explanations for all these things, and it's easy to find. And yet it's been really frustrating to me, the number of people that just sort of refuse to get a reasonable answer to their questions. It's fine having questions. I get being like, holy crap, how did Georgia flip? Georgia's voted red for 28 years. That's wild. Well, there's reasons for that. And you can find out those reasons pretty easily. And then you can be reminded that, oh yeah, in 2016, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, those had voted blue for 28 years. And then they went red. These things happen. Anyway, there's nothing fishy about it. And good gravy. The number of stories, quote, about proof of election rigging and fraud, I'm just pissed at not how stupid these stories are, but how quickly and easily you can uncover their preposterousness. And yet I'm just so angry at how so few people care to do so. They just pass it on to their friends and family, who passes it on to more friends and family, who compiles these lists of all these examples of evidence of proof. And suddenly these lies are just have become this pile of evidence providing a sense of or some sort of proof of fraud. And what I've noticed is it kind of just boils down to the same 4 or 5 easily disproved situations. Like the idea of there being more votes that came in than registered people in the state. Well, yeah, that's because the registered state numbers were out of date. They were from several years ago. So the chart was just reflecting wrong information. Or the people caught on camera just voting ballots just one after another for Biden. All you got to do is zoom the camera out and you realize, oh no, it's just in the context of people counting ballots. And they're doing the process where some ballots were damaged, so they couldn't be read by the machine. So they have a process by which they just update the damaged ballots, the new ballots that can be counted. Again, there's answers to all these things. And I've just been really angry at how those answers have been ignored. As though, no, still fishy. Oh, man. All right, I'm going to stop and tune in to Tori. Oh, hi, Tori. Yeah, the 2 world thing, to go back to that for a second. Super distressing. No common language or facts anymore for us to find common ground. Yeah, that's been a hard one for me to wrap my head around. Yeah. Irma Jean, you're feeling nervous and anxious that we're so opposite now. For 4 years, we've become so angry that we won't stop to heal. In 4 years, they're going to be doing this again. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. Oh, yeah. Amy, thank you for pointing that out. If this thing was rigged, then we really rigged it pretty crappily. we could have maybe flipped a few other things. And maybe why aren't we saying it the other way? Why aren't we accusing Republicans of rigging the Senate and the House votes? Because I thought we were going to win all those. That's fishy. Anyways, I'm kidding. Please don't quote me on that. Yeah, yes, exactly. Melissa Meyer, there are beautiful stories that help explain how these states have gotten flipped. So the answers are out there, and I've just been so frustrated that people are ignoring them. And it's driving me nuts. Okay, I do have this little side note here. I'm also trying to be conscious of how 4 years ago, myself and many others on the left were absolutely convinced that Russia stole the elections for Trump. Do you remember this narrative? I think we might have forgotten that we were very convinced of this. And so we held onto that narrative for a long time, took it all the way partially into the impeachment process. And so this is helping give me some grace and some space to just remember that what it feels like when you lose. You really don't want to lose. You grasp for explanations to make you feel better. And I wrote here that there's data that shows, exit polls that show that when your person wins, your confidence in the integrity of the elections is high. And then when your person loses, your confidence in the integrity of the election is low. There's just straight correlation there between the two. We're just losing us hard. And so we're prone to seek answers for it. Blaming it on rigged elections is an easy target for all of us. I apologize for my pause to drink here. It's a little Marco Rubio circa 2016, but the weather's gotten cold. I'm sorry. I don't know if Miss X is still on here. I just told you earlier it was like 70 degrees and you're saying it's snowy. It's kind of cold here for San Diego though, high 60s, but it's gotten super dry. So I'm just very dried out. I'm sure you're all wondering about that. Riveting. Okay, finally. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Finally, the 6th emotion is fear. And this is one that I try and keep at bay. I don't like the feeling of fear, but it's been creeping in here and there. And no, I'm not afraid of another civil war. No, I'm not afraid of a hostile Trump exit followed by uprisings around the country. No, I'm not afraid of America becoming a communist country. I think what I'm afraid of right now is that, yes, absolutely, Trump was repudiated. That's clear. But Trumpism, that seems alive and well. And that seems almost guaranteed to continue. I fear that the Republican Party has entirely been reshaped in these past 4 years in some really scary ways. I fear the culture that created Trump, and then to make it worse, the culture that then he created on top of that is growing. And my sense is, while people might be fine getting rid of Trump because he proved too incompetent for the job, in 4 years from now, they'll just find someone better to take the Trumpian reins, with the same underlying ideas and beliefs, only with a leader who's better at the game. I was thinking about an analogy might be like lung cancer. You can imagine someone who smokes multiple packs a day who gets a type of lung cancer. And by the way, I don't know much about cancer, so this could be a really terrible analogy. But I imagine someone who smokes a lot, develops lung cancer, goes through intense treatment, successfully beats the cancer into remission. But if they don't actually make substantive changes to their life, such as quitting smoking, then the cancer can just come back. And I kind of feel like Trump has been this cancer that, yes, last week's election served as our final blast of radiation to knock him out. But my sense is that many Americans have no interest in actually quitting smoking. So it could just come back again. And that scares me. So there it is. Those are the 6 emotions that I've been trying to identify that's been swimming around with me in this past week. And so I wonder how you're feeling, how you're doing. And as you can see down here, people have already been sharing some of how they're doing and feeling. And yeah, I imagine some of these will ebb and flow, and some might stick around forever, and others will come in over, especially the coming months. But that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at. And so oftentimes my perspective shift articles maybe, I don't know, I like to say, are maybe a little more scholarly or a little more intellectual. But this time it was just, I'm just going to pour my heart out a little bit, as much as an Enneagram 3 can pour their heart out. Thanks, Miss X, for giving me permission to... Oh, no, you don't feel bad for me about my... Oh, I thought you were giving me permission to not feel bad. But you don't feel bad for me. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Oh, thank you. Stay hydrated. Yes, and POTUS not conceding is feeding into the Trumpism attitudes. Yeah, that's true. It would be nice if he conceded, but at the same time, it's also not the worst thing in the world. There's, at least my sense is, even though it does seem like that's a thing that happens, and maybe it's happened all previous 45 elections. I don't actually know the data on that. Maybe it's a relatively modern phenomenon. I'm not entirely sure, but for me, it's more annoying. But also, I think we all saw it coming. There's just no way he's going to admit to losing at anything in life. He never has. Julie says, I'm especially worried about white complacency now that Joe Biden's in office. Some might think the work is over. It's so not over. Yeah, this is one of the, I don't know, in some ways, stay with me here for a minute. This might be one of the beautiful parts of having a 2-party system, where there is this constant re-establishing of the power base, where we're constantly pushing and pulling and moving back and forth. And so when one side gets into power, there maybe is a sense of complacency, or at least in comparison to the other side's drive to get back in, and they are motivated, and so then they take over, and then the other side gets motivated, and it just feels like that is not only part of the system, like in a resigning way, like, oh, that's just, but also there's something good about that. The yin and the yang of our democratic process, I think, is a beautiful thing. But don't get me wrong, I'm not saying like white supremacy should be a part of the equation. I'm just saying I agree with you that now for 4 years, all this energy that the Democratic side has put into getting rid of Trump, yeah, you could see that being matched now by the other side. And I think there's something, I don't know, there's something special in there, I guess. Liberal democracies are hard, y'all. This is why for most of human history, there have been monarchies and totalitarian regimes, and just democracies are just very challenging for all sorts of really good reasons. And I think America has a track record of being one of the best ever to do it. And we have supremely mucked it up in multiple ways as well. But anyway, that's not the point of this post. I don't really know politics. Paul Queen, how has the Republican side hijacked the Christian faith? How has the Republican... I'm not totally sure I understand the question. If you're asking me like in earnest, how do I think the Republican side has hijacked the Christian faith? I think the Christian faith has sort of been hijacked for almost 2,000 years. Honestly, it wasn't too far into the early church movement that then the ways of Jesus started to be compromised as it got footholds into power. Certainly when Constantine converted to Christianity and made Christianity the official state religion, there was no way for good things to come out of that. So yeah, I think in these last 4 years, at least, the Republican side, and maybe this goes back several decades to the rise of the religious right, I think that there has been some serious hijacking of the Christian faith to take these ideas of conservatism and fuse them into a political party so that Christian has equaled Republican, and even more so evangelicals equaled Republican. And I think that is just a real gross neutering of the way of Christianity. But anyway, that's probably it's a great question, Paul. Maybe I will think more about that and write more about that in the future. Amy says, my fear as well, I'm praying we don't end up with someone, someone, you say even crazier than Trump another 4 years. I think I know what you're saying. You're just grabbing a word, but I don't know if it's as much about crazy as just maybe someone who is more skilled at implementing these, this ethos. Or did the Christian, so Paul came back, or did the Christian faith attach itself to the Republican Party? I don't know, man. There's a funky, it's interesting. Here's what's interesting to me about that is that I was raised in some ways to think that Christianity is not political. Like, don't be political. To be political is in some ways to step outside the realm of jurisdiction of your faith. But the more that I've understood the person of Jesus and the initial movement of Christianity, the more I understand that it's all just too intertwined with each other. To be spiritual is to be political. They are inherently intertwined. And so I don't know if a Christian faith can attach itself to a Republican Party. I think what has happened in some ways is that there are a select few ideals within Christianity that a lot of people in the Republican Party have solely latched onto in isolation, ignoring a great many other ideals of the Christian way, and just narrowly created this small version of Christianity that, I don't know, is it because it uniquely supports Republican values? I'm not entirely sure. I think sometimes people have quick and easy answers to that, and I don't think it's as quick and easy as sometimes we might suggest that it is. But I do think 100% that this assumption that the Republican Party is the party that holds the values of the Christian faith, no, incorrect. And, you probably saw this was coming, I also don't think that the Democratic Party owns the values on Christian faith. No, I just don't think it's that simple, that cut and dry. Oh, thanks, Julie. Julie's recommending my book Unclobber to unpack how conservative evangelical Christianity has misinterpreted the Bible to demonize the queer community, and Dr. Ibram X. Kendi's, your 8 seconds went away, how to be an anti-racist, to understand how racism has never not existed in the country since our ancestors stole this land from Native Americans. Thanks for sharing, Julie Hatfield. All right. This concludes our time together on Wednesdays at 2 p.m. As you can see, I do this every Wednesday. And please go to colbymartin.substack.com to get this newsletter, Perspective Shift, which I just read from, delivered into your inbox every week. And then I'll be back here on the YouTubes and the Facebooks on Wednesdays at 2 to share it with you and to be with you for a little bit. So thanks for being with me. If you still want to go and share how you're feeling, go to this link, read this article, and let me know how you're feeling, because I just shared with you how I'm feeling. And then we'll see you a week from now. Thanks, y'all. If you'd like to sign up to get my weekly newsletter, Perspective Shift, where I examine life through a mixed lens of progressive Christianity, psychology, and spirituality, simply head over to colbymartin.substack.com. Enter your email address and click subscribe. And once you're in, you'll see that all my past articles are here. And don't worry, you don't have to do anything about missing anything, because every new edition of the newsletter goes directly to your inbox. And periodically, I'll hop on to Facebook Live here and do a live reading of a past article. So just make sure that you go to facebook.com/ColbyMartinAuthor, and then if you haven't already, you click this little guy here and you like my page. That way Facebook will say, hey, guess what? Colby's going live. Thanks for tuning in.